What up, my freaks? RuinousInsight here with part 43 of my Total Warhammer 3 modded Karl Franz campaign. So as we saw last time, the rats and the lizards, rather than fighting amongst each other or themselves, have decided to fight us. Wolfram Custerman faced off against the Skaven outside Moragliano and did defeat them, though at the cost of some damage to his army, and we did manage to continue to hold on here at Wallatal. So our two settlements in Illustria still continue to hold and continue to wait for Wolfheart to be properly up and running. Soon though, soon. 2 more turns until the barracks are up, which means huntsmen all over this army, and then we move out and start taking out the lizards that face off against us here. That said, hopefully we can continue to ally, or will ally maybe, with the other lizards that are down in the desert, though funnily enough, the territories that the lizards hold are all green territories for us, so yeah, it is also territory that we could use if we don't ally with them. Now that said, I suppose there's a limited amount of territory that we absolutely need to hold, so we don't actually have to be everywhere. Alrighty, anyway, in terms of what we gotta do this time, well, we have money to spend, but we do have to remember that we need at least 30,000 gold next turn for Altdorf, as it is about to head to tier 5, finally. And then we need to attack probably Luchini here with Balthazar Gelt, and in fact you can head on in right now. Let's see what we're looking at here in terms of defenses. It does have the defensive structure, and actually a pretty decent garrison here. They got a couple deck gunners, 3 carronades plus the mortars, yeah. This could definitely be a fight. Interesting. Well, you may have your work cut out for you, Gelt, here, though you do still have artillery superiority. And if you can take Luchini, the faction will be broken, though perhaps we want to wait until Sartosa upgrades to tier 5 so that we can take it at tier 4. Aldebras Meyer, we're going to have you go to Rifrafa right now. I do wonder if you... Wait, let me just see here. You're going to take Rifrafa. Pyrrhic victory with this, okay. That's also a little bit of a problem. Wait. Does Rifrafa also have defenses? It does. Now we could attack all this. Well, we very well could. Battle close victory, eh? I do have to wonder if the AI would be willing to sally out and attack either one of these armies. Aldebras in particular, because, well, this isn't a real army, it's just a bunch of troops that were leftovers from other armies. It wasn't ever supposed to fight, and would obviously have a pretty major problem doing so. We probably don't want it sieging, in fact, and we may want Balthazar Gelt to do it for us. And if they are willing to sally out, then that might be the better option. Because we could take these guys in the field probably much easier. Then again, if we don't do that, what we could do is take Luchini and then move to Rifrafa to help Aldebras instead. And that's another decent option. And then, of course, this, man, everybody is sieging locations in Tilea and Sartosa, eh? Alright, well, either way, Moragliano is the big question here, because if we take it, we may be in danger of getting attacked by the Skaven, though that may still be the case. In fact, just move a little bit closer here to Moragliano. I do have to wonder whether the Skaven will try to come for us or not. And we could continue the siege, but the Skaven could still attack us and draw out the garrison, which will force Owen back, and then him to take damage out there. I do imagine that we could take this. You know what? I think we're going to attack. We're going to attack, but we do need to do one thing. We don't really care about the items for you because you're a temporary lord. That's going to get replaced by another one. But what we do need is to borrow a Lichbone pennant. Let's say from Karl, who doesn't currently need it. Because there are sirens to be fought against here, and, well, we need somebody to actually be able to damage them. You, Warrior Priest, are the other magical damaging unit here, and you have Regal. Why did we keep you? You're Regal. No, I guess we just kept him because he was around and... We do need a warrior priest in this army. Oh, it's possibly because of the leadership aura for this guy. Maybe we couldn't find a better warrior priest. I genuinely no longer remember. I guess you can keep Regal for the leadership aura for now, though if we find a better one, I feel like we'll probably replace you. Also, you can have Hammer of Sigmar, definitely replenish troops, and then get Safeguard as well. And I believe that's it. Let's do the battle first, then we'll do building afterwards. Now, the question is what we put the Lichbone Pennant on. We could put it on one of the Great Swords, or we could put it on the Bordermen, who do fairly well with that sort of thing. Now, the only issue there is if we send the Great Swords up on top of the walls, and chances are we probably will, then the Bordermen probably wouldn't be able to help against the units there. Then again, we could also just break through the gate after our artillery are done with dealing with stuff. Might be safer to put it on a Great Sword unit, I'm not sure. Then it could be up on the wall or in melee. Though obviously the Great Swords are more likely to get hurt. Yeah, I'll just put it on the Great Swords for now. No, you know what? I changed my mind. We're gonna put it on the Borderman. Karl had it on the Borderman, and Karl knows what he's doing, so let's do that, and get to it.
Raise your weapons!
Alrighty, and here comes the Wraith Storm to start off this particular battle. Let's see how much damage this thing does. So, basically halves the HP off a unit of Greatswords. It doesn't kill a lot of models, mind you, only 10, but half HP is pretty darn devastating, and this unit will no longer participate in this battle already, unless the other units get in trouble, which may, in theory, happen. Anyway, as usual, we're going to begin the battle with the bombardment, and we do have plenty of mortars in this particular army, so they should be able to go to work and damage the enemy pretty heavily, soften up the settlement before the rest of our units move in. There are depth guard on top of the walls, which I would be interested to see in a fight versus our great swords, but that won't stop the bombardment from happening. So let's begin with that. Now we are going to also knock down the gate, so we are going to target that with our cannon. But otherwise, the mortars will continue dishing out the damage primarily to any enemies that they can actually reach, not particularly targeting anything. Alrighty, now this is going to take a little bit of time. We can watch a few more shots, but afterwards I'm going to speed it up, mostly because it's not super interesting to see just the bombardment, and we've seen it many a time already. We are going to now tell all the mortars and the cannon to try their best to focus down this unit of deck gunners up here, because they're pretty darn terrifyingly effective, and we can certainly not approach the enemy settlement until the deck gunners are gone. Also, I have been thinking, and we might want to add some Sigmarite disciples into this particular army. Yeah, they're not Templars of Moor, but, well, you don't have Blackguard of Moor in the foot version, even though perhaps you should. Well, you know, feature creep and all that. I do feel like CA probably could have added them as a halberdier version. Once again, I think I went over this before, in the early portions of the campaign, and I just think that a heavily armored halberdier Blackguard of Moor unit should be added. And then you could make a nice Moor-themed army between them and the Knights of Moor. I guess technically you could also have a range weapon using more knights, because they do learn range weapons, but nonetheless, not super important. What I was getting at is that the Sigmarites also don't like the Restless Dead, and they would work well with the Moor units, so we could have some great swords and some Sigmarite disciples, as well as the Knights of Moor in here, just to diversify the army and to be able to not have this Lichbone Pennant in here, as the Sigmarite disciples obviously provide magical damage. Anyway, the bombardment will continue, but I'm going to speed it up a little bit, otherwise we'll be watching this for 10 minutes. The gate will go down, and the rest of the units will be taking fairly decent amounts of hits as well. Looks like the second unit of deck gunners has been destroyed, and as enemies pop, the AI is going to move additional units on top of the walls. This also means that the walls will be continually damaged, even when not directly targeted by artillery, and it looks like the enemy is actually going to send some sirens up on top of this wall. Not the best move, perhaps, as this wall is now being directly targeted and will go down. Not only do the sirens all die, but I believe there was an vampire fleet captain standing up there who collapsed with the wall and instantly died together with half that unit of sirens. Considering the sirens are the scariest unit in this particular army due to its physical resistance, I'm real glad that that occurred. Alrighty, how's our ammunition looking? And the mortars are down to about a third of their ammo, although the cannons still have plenty, but it is now time to start moving forward. Looks like the enemy actually wants to sally out with the sirens. They are, of course, not yet visible. Or actually, no, they are now visible. Nope, they are hidden. Alrighty, but we're going to move our infantry forward, and fortunately, our mortarmen should be able to take care of these guys. And then we'll be able to speed it back up to normal. Alrighty, there we are. The enemy units appear, and we immediately charge forward with our magic-dealing Arch-Elector, or actually our magic-dealing Warrior Priest, while the hand grenades from the Bordermen and Mortarmen come down on those sirens. Not a very threatening amount of damage to our Lord and Hero, but the sirens should be destroyed by the magical grenades. Alrighty, and that one unit is down, and it looks like the enemy is going to waste both its siren unit. The second one is going to sally out here as well. And we have to have our Arch-Elector or our Warrior Priest out front because, well, he's our only other magic damage dealing enemy, so it's a perfect use for him to countercharge these guys. Alrighty, otherwise our mortars and our cannon continue to fire, but our greatswords are getting ready to stream into the city. It looks like we're getting a few grenade shots through this gap in the enemy wall as well, hitting the depth guard and the zombie pirate deckhands mob that's in there as well. Not the best place to be. Narrow little breach in the wall to have your units, and just for the grenades to absolutely wreck face. Man, the Bordermen have been such a great unit throughout this campaign. Alrighty, and we should be just about ready to move in. I wanted to make sure that we had a unit of greatswords ready to go through each section of the wall. And we're even going to lob some shots over the wall as well with our second unit of Bordermen. Might as well soften the targets even further. And before we go in, as obviously the grenades will probably have to stop firing at least a little bit once our units move inside the settlement. Otherwise, before we even enter the settlement, the balance of power shifts in our favor to about, I want to say, 60-65%. And it's probably going to continue shifting further in our favor as well. Anyway, let's speed it up once more. We've already seen a number of grenade shots, and I want to see the infantry fight, as well as our hero, our lord, and hopefully the Knights of War as well. This is their army, after all, so they have to be the ones to shine. Alrighty, you two are going to start working on those depth guard, and even though these are the dual weapon depth guard, not the halberdiers, they should still be fairly threatening to our lord units, so we do have to be careful. Depth guard are vampires, after all. Unlike the grave guard, these aren't wights, so they should be a fairly strong unit. I honestly think that Depth Guard should perhaps even be closer to aspiring champions in terms of strength, by virtue of what they are. But then again, well, that would also include lowering their model count, and the problem with doing that is, well, you have the Blood Knights, who also have a fairly similarly high model count, so I guess it does make sense. And SFO does make these guys considerably stronger, and at 60 model counts, they do match the Blood Knights, so it does make sense, actually. So ignore everything I said. Yeah, I can't wait to play Vampire Coast next time around, or whenever you guys vote for them. and try out armies with lots of depth guard. SFO depth guard, I mean. Anyway, those depth guard unfortunately are just about out of the picture. We have some rotting Prometheans moving in to fight our great swords, though it looks like it's going fairly well in our favor. Mortars getting their last few shots in, though their ammo is just about depleted. And it also looks like the enemy's moving in some animated hulks, which means more enemies for the great swords to fight. Yeah, I suppose the depth guard are likely weaker vampires in the sense that they're thralls and otherwise not very old, and thus they're not going to be as strong as an actual vampire, like Hero. It's also pretty difficult to represent some things, like Blood Knights would be obnoxiously strong, because they're all full-fledged, fairly strong vampires with lots of experience, generally speaking. In fact, the way that the Blood Knights are generally turned is already extremely experienced units. But anyway, I digress. Some things are the way they are for balance reasons, and the Knights of More are going to bring balance to the game by returning these abominations to the grave. Man, the Knights of More look fantastic, don't they? Anyway, they've seen off those animated hulks and have also charged in to fight the rotting Prometheans, though we are not going to see too much of them here because everybody's fighting in the dark. Oh, some little light areas here as well. Alrighty, well, I assume the rotting Prometheans aren't long for the world either, and our other unit is going to just move away briefly from the great swords in order to charge another enemy unit. There are zombie powered deckhands mob with polearms and handguns back here, so we might as well charge them rather than allow them to do damage. We also do have deck droppers floating up in the sky, and these are the bomb variety, and they're going to drop some of those bombs in the Knights of More, but they're also going to get shot out of the sky by our cannon at the same time. Hopefully the cannon can actually land a few decent shots there. Feels like a good shot will probably knock several of these guys out of the sky. There we go, that looked like it knocked 3 or 4. Very nice. Alright, great swords working through the last of these deckhand polearms, and I do believe the battle is just about ours. The balance of power is about 80-85% in our favor. This unit melts away. I do believe the rotting Prometheans are melting away as well, and it'll just be the mortar and the bombers back here, or in fact, not even really those, as the army has begun to chain rout and crumble. The Knights of More will just leave this crumbling unit to its own devices and allow it to die, or return to the grave, I should say, and charge these mortars and bombers to finish the battle off. Now let's watch the charge, of course. They're moving through that barricade, or whatever that thing is called, the caltrops, I don't know. It slows you down. And there we go, charge on in, destroy that crew, which is just about done for, and then charge through them into the bombers. Just like so. Well done to the Knights of More, and the battle is just about theirs. Huh, is that mortars hitting them, or is this the bombers exploding when they die? I'm not entirely sure. Or are they chucking bombs while in melee at the same time? Is that what's happening? Kinda hard to tell where those explosions are coming from. Not that it makes much of a difference, and it's not like these guys can face off against the Knights of More in melee. These may be shock cavalry, but they'll be just fine. On top... Oh, wait, actually, Knights of More count as regular cavalry, not as shock cavalry? Huh. Yeah, well, they do have swords rather than lances. Makes sense. Alright, well, my mistake, and that's perfectly good. That means they can stay in melee combat quite a bit longer. and remain in relatively good HP. Alrighty, and there we go. That was the last unit. Will crumble away, and though a close victory, the battle is ours. I think really the only reason that this is a close victory is a combination of ammunition and those couple of units of great swords which got hit by the Wraithstorm army bound ability, which did damage them pretty heavily, though I do imagine they'll heal pretty considerably due to the fact that it didn't take a lot of their models out, so happy there. Well done to the Knights of More army, and we will definitely build it out to be a proper host as we go. Alrighty, not too bad at all. The Knights of More certainly got to play, or at least the Mortifactors in this particular battle did. 126 kills, beating everybody, including the Mortar. Oh, these names. Fantastic. Yeah, beating all the great swords, despite the great swords fighting for considerably longer and only losing to the various artillery pieces, and even then only by one unit compared to the highest damaging artillery, who fired for the entire battle and expended pretty much all their ammunition. So, well done to the Knights of More. Hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of you. This is just the pun army now. Let's occupy Moragliano, fairly decent place, and hey, we got a student out of that as well. And ooh, wow, Moragliano. Let's go for grazing pastures. We will need walls here, and we will also need, well, probably paved roads, probably public order, and probably the weaving house. Would be nice to get the landed estate, but we can't have everything, so let's do that as well. Plus, we are getting growth out of the grazing pastures after all. Is occupied Moragliano a special city or no? It is not, or at least it's not in the sense that it doesn't actually give us anything extra. No special building, but that's okay. At least we get the Temple of Myrmidia out at Magritta instead. Also, Tobaro, you get an upgrade. Might as well start doing all of our building and stuff right now. Definitely guardhouse here. All the coastal territories have to have guardhouse. It's one of the unfortunate aspects of it, as the ports increase the value of the coastal territories, but since coastal territories are so likely to get attacked, they need walls, which counteract that by reducing the income. Oh well. Wait, now that I'm thinking about it, is the road actually valuable here? This place will be near to Sartosa. It will be near to the border princes out. Yeah, alright, fine. It'll still have some decent value. We'll probably also want to build roads out here as well. Anyway, well done, Toendizen. Let's continue our building, and then we will do the second battle. Ooh, wait. Have to assign that student before I forget. We do need all the extra... Ah, damn, you already have one. All the extra... You do not. A research rate we can get. Alright. And what are we at right now, incidentally? We are at 234, and it would be a lot better if a certain failure, a certain complete failure, would stop being a failure. Yep, failure. Alright. Flashbacks.
Bring it down.
Ah, there you go. See, you just have to be motivated by being, you know, degraded and whatnot. Anyway. Well, let's get back to it. Balthazar, well, no, you know, well, let's build a few more buildings, and then we'll attack. And what do we have here? Eschen, you can hold off on the walls, and Zufbar, ooh, the public order is dropping, but it is due to Confederation. On the other hand, we got a lot more Confederations that are gonna come in the future, so it nonetheless seems fairly necessary to have the coaching in here. It's just not super necessary right now in terms of the cost. There's much more important stuff to build, i.e. the special buildings in Altdorf. Blackstone Post could be worth an upgrade. Not as much as Matorka, however. Salt and Port and... Is Matorka in a safe location? Probably not, unfortunately. I think we'll need walls here as well. Mostly because the Bloody Hands could attack us. Once the Badlands have been cleared out of orcs and are occupied by our allies, then we can probably delete these walls. But for now, not so much. Karakungor, definitely build the gold mine and start building that clothier as well. And I do believe that's all the money we probably want to spend right now. Otherwise, it's going to get too expensive. And we won't have enough money for what we want to do. Alrighty, well, if that's all we need to do, I guess Balthazar Gelt, it's your turn. We are going to apply your points, and do you get anything special at level 20? Let's see here. We could just put another point in Imperial Gunnery. What kind of magic do you got? You got 100. So we could make some use out of, or get some use out of Gehenna's Golden Hounds. You know what, I think for this battle we'll take Gehenna's as well. Next up, your Warrior Priest, who is tough. Ooh. Gotta keep checking for the Imperial Calibration type, and you can have Faith's Bastion. And then lastly, you, another Ditizen. You are going to, I guess, go for Deadly Blade. There's really nothing for you to get here otherwise, so Deadly Blade it is. Also, before we go, I just want to double check that we don't have any state troops that are up this turn. I'm pretty sure we got one turn until Knights of War again. Yes, alright. That's about it, though. Alrighty, well, to Luchini we go. Balthazar Gelt, it's your turn once more. Ooh, wait 1 second. I forget, do you have both the Halberdiers and... No, you only have the Handgunners. Oh. I don't like that. Alright, I think we can make you lose the Gleaming Pennant and replace it with a Halberdier unit. So, once again, Imperial Adjutants and Patrol Captain Halberdiers. And then you're gonna join Gelt's army. We still need so many of these darn things. Okay, and Patrol Captain Halberdiers. Beautiful. Yeah, nowhere near enough. Every army needs them. Alright, we shall be victorious, say Gelt. That's a perfect thing to say before we fight, and fight we shall.
By Ulrich's will!
Alrighty, here we go. Gelty is back for more and ready to turn some enemies' bones into gold, at least as he keeps threatening to do so. Now, in contrast to the last battle, just to make it a little bit different, we are not really going to try to breach one location, but rather surround the enemy city and bombard it from several directions at once. If we had even more artillery, I would have set up even more units on the other side. Now, this should just make the battle a little bit more different than what we've been getting so far, and we are still going to have to watch some bombardment, but we will move into the settlement with units as well after the target's been a little bit softened up. Anyway, obviously the fire rain rockets are going to target the enemy infantry, and the cannons are going to try to work on those rotting Prometheans and whatever other large units they can catch. I do believe there are some man-eaters or something in there somewhere else as well. In terms of deployment, pretty simple. We have 3 entrances into the city, and we have cannon and fire rain rockets at each. Then here in the middle, we have our 2 units of war wagons with mortars, which are also firing on the enemy, specifically targeting those carronades over the walls where the carronades cannot fire back. They are in fact doing a pretty good job destroying said carronades, and Gelty is helping out with the Gehenna's Golden Hounds, which we got specifically for this. Alrighty, and I do believe that did a decent amount of damage. Gelt's already got 23 or 230 kills and 24k damage from a single spell. So pretty good. Huh. I'm still hearing the, like, sound of gold. Like the sound of the Gehenna's Golden Hounds spell, even though the spell has ended. Odd. Well, it's gone now, but yeah, seems to have lasted much longer than the actual spell did. Anyway, the bombardment continues, the bounce of power still in the enemy's favor, and considering the sheer number of troops that the enemy has, it's hardly surprising, but they've already lost 2 carronades, the zombie-powered gunnery mob is just about done for. And now we are going to start moving into the city just a little bit. First of all, just our summoned units to distract the enemy while our bombarding artillery pieces do considerably more damage. And then once these guys are out, we'll start moving the regular units in. That said, all while we wait, that does give the enemy opportunity to keep casting Wraithstorm. My first Wraithstorm actually hit these Eldred's Guard and did 35 units off of them. In contrast to the Great Swords, which in our previous battle lost 10, I believe, to the Wraithstorm. It's kind of interesting that these guys lost 35, especially considering the fact that they have 110 armor, and I believe the Greatswords had 90, unless I'm mistaken. So what gives? I take it as because these guys have a lower HP threshold per unit, based on the fact that they have a lot more units, right? Greatswords have 100 and these guys have 140. So I think that's what makes it kill so many more, but yeah, a little bit unfortunate for them. Oh well, what can you do? And just gotta make sure not to send those guys in so that they don't get damaged on top of being hit by that Wraithstorm. I also do imagine we'll have more Wraithstorms to contend with, just like we did in the previous battle, but that's okay. Our cannon continue to fire and rip a few enemies apart, though obviously they're not doing anything crazy. There's some shots from our single unit of handgunners as well. Gelt definitely needs some of his own handgunners, and we'll probably get him a combination of, if we can fit them, a couple of Null Ironsides, or maybe a couple of the snipey guys instead. And the Hawkland long rifles is what I'm referring to. We will see. It really depends on what exactly fits into his army, because he still is the best power-up for artillery and for steam tanks and for luminarchs, so he should have all that, plus he's the Electrocount of Solon, so he should be using the Eldred's Guard. And he does reduce their upkeep cost, or the spearmen in general. So basically there's a lot of units that we kind of want to be in Gelt's army that we'll have to deal with. Anyway, bombardment continues, and the enemy is going to try to react a little bit to our summoned units. The balance of power is still in their favor, even though they have lost about 100 units at this point. These guys are going to charge in. We don't really care about the halberdiers and the handgunners surviving. And we're just going to use the enemies moving in like this to drop some spells on them in a little bit, as well as a few hits from our artillery. It looks like these guys are going to move away from the spell just a bit, but not quite in time. A Searing Doom coming down and doing more damage for Gelt, who's up at 34k and 289 kills. Also, this allowed us to make some distance between the enemy with our own units, which further allows the Fire Rain rockets to continue exploding those poor Sartosan pirates. Alrighty, slowly moving into the settlement now, just encroaching on their territory a little bit. We've also got our Outriders who are harassing the enemies that are hanging out around the choke points, exploding any infantry they can find, and allowing the artillery to continue firing on any enemies that chase said Outriders. I do like their color scheme. Alright, keep launching those grenades, boys. You still got a lot of work to do. Fortunately, there's a decent amount of infantry here. And then hopefully the cannons can work on the Man-Eaters and the Rotting Prometheans, or whatever other monster is out here. Yeah, I love Rotting Prometheans. Though I do like the Krabby boys, they're adorable. Too bad we can't have some of them for ourselves. Alrighty, let's see how we're doing over on this side. Gelt going to cast again. There's a unit of zombie pirate gunnery mob here, and we're gonna go with Gehenna's Golden Hounds. Yet again, the enemy's kind of trapped with this vortex here. Not a great position for them to be in. Unless I'm mistaken, the vortex can't go through this thing, so it will continue to bounce, and whenever it goes down here, it'll bounce back up. Very good use of that particular spell. And hey, we're just giving the pirates some treasure. We're giving them what they want. Alright, that puts Gelt up to 440 and 47k. Yeah, he's doing a lot of work in this particular battle. A good job to him. Now, after that spell, the balance of power is nearly 50-50. The enemy's lost more than half of their troops at this point, and we've lost basically nothing. And just our summoned units. Our Outriders will get hit by an upgraded Spirit Leech, but we're going to pop that glittering robe on them, though I guess in this situation it doesn't actually do anything. Just got kind of concerned about them, and it's a sort of instant reaction sort of thing. Muscle memory. Unit starts getting hurt, bam, glittering robe. At the very least, that might protect them from a little bit of splash damage if they get hit by our own artillery pieces due to the extra resistances they get.
Here comes the gun.
Alrighty, man-eaters moving in and milling around, and it almost looks like the animated hulks were made from the corpses of the man-eaters, which I kind of like. And they do have similar, well, everything. Neat. Or at least in part the corpses of the man-eaters. Anyway, now it's time to move more troops into the city. We got Eldred's Guard coming in, we got our Lord, or our Lords are floating overhead for this entire time, but our heroes coming in, and soon we will start fighting these guys manually. The artillery and the handgunners, or rather the bordermen, nope, the Outriders continue to fight in the background as well, but in these particular locations they're just going to back off if the enemy closes the distance, so not as important. Here we're going to try to charge the enemy man-eaters a little bit, and dish out a little bit of damage, and then we will send our Eldred's Guard to support. And just want to make sure that these guys are well and truly engaged, and then here we go. And Gelt is also going to help out by popping another Glittering Robe, upgraded this time, giving us 25% extra physical resistance. Missile resistance not super useful right now, but that's okay. Alrighty, time for you to move in, Eldred's Guard. You guys are anti-large after all. Can't have the Lord and Hero doing all the work, or just the heroes rather doing all the work. Gelt is not down here as yet. And I guess we can't have the artillery and the Outriders doing all the work either. Plus, once again, the Eldred's Guard look really nice for spearmen. And it seems like they're doing a pretty decent job at bringing those man-eaters down. Are you guys really trying to kick the ogres? I don't think that would be all that effective. You're probably better off using the spear rather than bothering to try to kick them. Otherwise, it looks like the enemy has moved some Rotting Prometheans in, but we have sent some Sigmarite Disciples to counteract them as well. And as somebody pointed out, the lightning effect is likely from the metal shifting passive of the Allure of Metal. As we can clearly see the lightning effect on all the other units, and yes, it is probably from when Gelt casts stuff, as he has been doing so. For example, he just cast the Plague of Rust on the animated hulks, though he probably actually would have been better off casting it on the Rotting Prometheans instead, as animated hulks have fairly low armor in the first place. Otherwise, the battle is pretty much ours at this point. The balance of power may be only at about 60%, but most of the enemy elites are done for, and our artillery is just destroying anything that comes near. Alrighty, animated hulks are out now, and oh well, the Rotting Prometheans are still fighting, though let's see. They're actually not doing a lot of damage. Well, they are Rotting Prometheans, so they're a defensive unit with a low melee attack and extremely high melee defense, so they're meant to sort of hold ground, which they are absolutely doing. But while they hold the ground, they don't have another unit to do the damage for them right here, so the enemy is kind of just wasting them. And they're creating space by holding back units, but nobody can capitalize on that fact. Oh well, I suppose that's their problem. They will be done for shortly. And Gelt's still flying around. It looks like some deck droppers have moved in who were being kind of annoying, so Gelt is just going to move in and help the cannon out by charging them in the back, and hopefully morale shocking them sufficiently for the entire unit to drop. And there we go. Looks like they don't really want to face off against Gelt, and Gelt just got hit in the face by a rocket. And let's see, we got some more Outriders over in the background who are going to send those grenades into those deckhand mob units. There were 2 carronades here, actually, that these guys were focusing down, and they did destroy them. And now they'll just finish off this last unit of deckhands mobs, and I do believe that the rest of the enemy army is beginning to crumble away. Yeah, looks like the deckhands mob doesn't even know what to do. It can't charge the Outriders because it can't catch them. So it's just going to sit there and die, just like the rest of the enemy forces, including the enemy lord here, who has charged in only for Gelt to kill him in person in melee. In which Gelt doesn't do a lot, but I guess this time he made an exception. Well done, Gelty boy, the battle is ours, the enemy lord is dead, the rest of the enemy units begin to crumble away, and now I guess you get another charge for you here, and this vampire fleet captain is taking too long to crumble. For whatever reason, the camera doesn't like to go super low in this particular map. I guess there's a lot of like debris and stuff on the ground. Yeah, there we go. Gelt will have brought down the captain, and now the battle is over. A heroic victory for us, and while we certainly did take a little bit of damage, mostly due once again to the Wraith Storm, and we did a lot more damage to the enemy. Alrighty, well, it certainly took a little bit of a while to get there, but a heroic victory is a heroic victory. I mean, we were up against a pretty decent force and we destroyed them piecemeal, systematically, moved from various sides to attack them. It was a pretty fun fight. We got a decent amount of prestige, a little bit of money, and a ton of damage on several units. Gelt lost by 1 unit, though, to the Hellstorm rockets. Pretty good in terms of kills, but damn, just the 1 unit, eh? Oh well, we're gonna occupy the place, obviously, and let's see. We've certainly sent the pirates packing this episode. Riffrafa still remains, but Gelt can help out with it, or we can send Owen Ditizen to help out with it next time, and Gelt could move to Sartosa, or, well, raid Sartosa, as we may want to wait for that 1 or 2 extra turns. It is a lot of money and time saved up that we don't have to wait to grow. And man, do we have a lot of armies here. Yeah, we're definitely going to need to quickly move them down here, as we are starting to fight everybody down here, and I guess we could send a couple down to and deal with Arcan as well. It's certainly something that we could help out with, and somebody suggested sending the Knights of Moor down here, because it kind of makes sense to put the dead back into their graves, which I do like the idea of. Also, Karazakarak, have you gotten good units yet? No. Where the heck are those Iron Drakes? We've saved up 100 gold, or allegiance rather, not quite gold, and you still don't have access to Iron Drakes? Do you have access to them anywhere, please? No? I don't see the Iron Drake building anywhere. Come on, man. Alright, well, I guess we're just gonna have to keep on waiting, man. He's just not building good buildings. It's all mustering halls, barracks everywhere. Does he even have a gunsmith? Are you telling me that Thorgrim did not build a single gunsmith anywhere? Now he does have one here, but it's just thunderers and cannons, nothing interesting. Well, here's hoping that we can get some of the more interesting stuff shortly. And at least this will go up to tier 4 in a little bit. We got engineers here, but the tier 2 doesn't allow for recruitment of gyrocopters, does it? It needs to be a tier 3. Well, I guess we'll keep on waiting. We're not going to bother with any of their weaker units. There are some interesting ones that we will hopefully get eventually. But anyway, with that, I believe we're out of time, and I'm going to have to call it. Next time, we probably destroy Sartosa for good, as they have 2 settlements remaining. We will also try to move towards Skavenblight, or see if they move towards us. They are surrounded, but they also have the pick of their targets, and they very well may get an ambush going, because, well, they're the Skaven, and they can attack an ambush. So that might be interesting. And then, of course, Karl will continue to move northward past Duzkalak, and hopefully to save the Ursun revivalists before they die. We do still have a fair way to travel, but perhaps we can go out of Karak Valag and go by sea to reach them as fast as possible, and just give them a couple of territories. I mean, they have the Tower of Torment, so anything near them is up for grabs. Anyway, that's the plan. We'll see if it survives contact with the enemy. Stay tuned to find out. Don't forget to leave a like and comment. All glory to the algorithm. And thanks for watching.